Did you realize that most schools are actually planning to continue virtual experiences for prospective families? In fact, according to school admin, they found that 96% of schools are planning to continue virtual admission experiences compared to only 3% in the past. So, although many private schools may not feel that virtual experiences have the same impact as in person visits, there really are some incredible ways to create top notch experiences for your campus tours, your appointments, shadow days, and community engagement. So we're going to look at some really strong examples of some schools that have done a good job of this, and that will help you begin to build out a more robust platform online. So first of all, you want to make sure that your website has a virtual admission center. This should be a dedicated page that has all of the information for your prospective families. Check out Westover School and Pulaski Academy. They've done an excellent job. And then make sure that you promote that respective web page through your Facebook advertising, streaming platforms, your email news, and other methodologies. So here are some of the top tips that were discussed during a webinar that was hosted by school admin. They really had some great concepts and ideas. So the first thing let's talk about are shadow days. So you want to create, a compelling name for a shadow day. There's something about shadow that sounds a little dark, actually, no pun intended. How about virtual visit or discovery day or create your own journey? And then that shadow day experience could include things like attending a class, maybe a choice of a club activity from a short menu, a virtual fitness class, perhaps with one of your coaches, and then maybe a Q&A session with the Office of Admission. So what you want to do is remember to do segmentation. Think about your different audiences and then give them the choices that align well with their respective audience. Make sure you create a dynamic look for your website page, so that you can really call out some key information and really give people authentic voices. So one school, for instance, created various school ambassador photos, and then they had a profile information that allowed families to choose an ambassador for their shadow experience. So if you have a student with ADD, for instance, maybe that family really wants to be with a student with a similar background. Maybe you have a student from overseas, so you want to align that with an international student. Or maybe it's grade level specific, for instance. So by pairing prospects with a buddy or ambassador, this is really going to allow for interaction after attending a class. So maybe a prospective student really has a question about biology. Maybe that's really their love and they're planning to major in biology, but they want to ask some questions about the instructor or the content or how many students are getting into colleges or universities that have a strong science department. Another thing that you can think about doing is, having your ambassadors aligned with grade levels, as I mentioned earlier. And this might work well, but also think about your ambassador's specific strengths and interests. So, sometimes you have a student that is in seventh grade, but maybe they're really focused on sports, or another student really loves community service, or another student is, straight A student. Sometimes that can be more meaningful than trying to pigeonhole a prospective student with just somebody in the same grade level. Um, The other thing that, you want to do too is provide some background information and training to these ambassadors so they really know how to be supportive during the entire process. I attended a school once and went on tour, and I was very impressed. The student led the entire tour independently. And then I received an email shortly thereafter from the student asking if there were any questions that he could address. And this was actually at Thatcher in California, one of the top boarding schools in the country. So I thought that was a really interesting process, that they trusted that student enough and their intellectual and social interactions to manage that process. And to do that in a way that the prospective family would be completely at ease, knowing that, there's not someone else in the picture. On the other hand, some schools feel strongly that an admission professional should always be aligned with the student and in sync with that, so that if questions do arise that the student cannot respond to, that there is an adult present. The other thing too that I would recommend is limit the number of classes to maybe one or two maximum. Don't spread yourself too thin, and really select your best faculty. Who presents well on film? Who does a top-notch job in the classroom? Who's showing an interactive and compelling lesson? So really make sure that the faculty that you select are really keen on being, on video, and that they have a good voice, that they have a good tone, that they have positive interactions, and that you can not only make that a live experience, but potentially a recorded experience. And that was a discussion about whether, shadow days work well virtually or not. Some schools preferred to do a pre-recorded type of session, or record, a classroom lesson one day and then invite prospects to view it the following day or in the future, because sometimes a classroom situation can go off kilter. You never know if there may be some misbehavior going on. Who knows? So you have to best determine your student body and their ability to manage a shadow day experience that will be viewed by others in a mature fashion. The other topic that I really want to touch on are open houses. First of all, a lot of schools have gotten away from that terminology, open houses. So once again, I encourage you to think about, campus experience, coffee or tea with the head of school, whatever you decide to name it, a day in the life of, really use some imagination. But open house does speak to a lot of families. People are familiar with that terminology. But do create options so that families can join in when it's convenient, and they have the choice to either do on demand or choose from a list of dates, or attend perhaps a live session. So you can, have a live session as one option, record it, and then offer that on demand. Or you can offer a list of dates so that you ensure that all families have a more live and interactive experience. You want to make sure that you do have a polished product in the end. Videography and Zoom can sometimes really, go off track. So you want it to feel authentic. You don't want it to feel too manufactured, but you do want it to be professional and polished and well planned. I would recommend that you really think about your format. So for instance, you could have your president or head do a very quick 1 or 2 minute intro. Then you maybe go into a quick campus tour. Maybe it's slides or a short video. Maybe it's something live where a student is guiding people on campus. You could have live presentations, perhaps from faculty or staff members. You could involve and embed parent and student testimonials. You could have an admission application process and Q&A session. So that would be a fairly lengthy presentation and open house format, but it could be done in a matter of a couple of hours. But for most people, they're Zoom weary. They're just weary of being online all the time. So you may consider breaking these out so that people have a chance to, hey, hear from our head today. The next day, go on a tour. The next day, maybe hear some live presentations from faculty or staff. Perhaps the next day, hear some student testimonials. And then at the tail end, walk through the application and Q&A process with admission. But maybe they don't want to attend all of the sessions. Maybe they just want to jump right in and talk to admission and get going on the admission process. So really think about the fact that everybody has a different journey. And this became a real buzzword years ago in private schools because they started to discover that not everyone was just calling the school anymore. Some people were sending them an email with a question. Some people were filling in an online inquiry form. Some people were directly applying online. For a variety of ways to shop. Some people were going directly to the website. Others were seeing them through a Google ad. Others were finding out about them from social media posts that were shared. Other people were, sharing email newsletters with prospects, or families were talking to neighbors and friends. So think about that experience and think about the journey and the open house format being responsive to the way in which someone shops schools today and the kind of experience that they may want to have, so that they don't just hop on to an open house experience, realize that it's way too lengthy or it's not tackling the information they want and it's not specific enough. And then they're trying to find what part, or waiting for the part that they want to hear. The next section that I really want to tackle, before I get to that, let me just backtrack just a little bit more. So if you do a student-directed format for an open house, really make sure, your ambassadors are in the top campus venues. Give an opportunity for Q&A student panels. You could have pre-registration required so that you're well prepared for that. You could offer a brief welcome from the admission office and then move into student responses to questions. And then admissions could support and interject comments as needed. And one school did a really good job. I just found this recently. St. Mary's Academy in Portland did a good job of really showcasing their open house format. So check out this link that I have in my blog. All of this information, by the way, is on the blog on apertureadvisory.com. So if you want a copy of it or want to review it, no need to take notes. Just go to apertureadvisory.com and go to our blog section. Now, turning to the tour options. So with tours, you can use a video with personal narration. You could use an existing video and put some new audio on it, or you could mute that audio so that you can add a more personal touch as you show off your campus. You could go about live, but most campuses are so large that it would be hard to do that without doing some editing after the fact. And so that would not make for a live experience, but maybe you have, an existing video, and then you could just kind of do some personal overlay on the audio. Uh, some schools are doing a personalized tour with a phone. They're just holding their phone as they guide families through the campus. Some of them are doing individualized appointments with that in mind. And honestly, I have to say that, there's pretty good data to support, including when I was the director of admission for many years, that when you offer a personalized experience with just one family at a time, your conversion rate is typically much higher than in open house experiences, because people don't feel like they're just part of a herd. They feel like you are speaking to them. So, really try to make the process as similar to what you would offer them on campus as possible. Really think about that, process. Uh, think about film for a moment. Watching a really great film, you really feel like you're inside the story. You're experiencing it directly. Um, you watch Out of Africa and you are right there, and you are enmeshed with the characters and the landscape. But then you think of a B-level film where you can kind of almost feel the actors. You feel distanced, you feel detached. So really try to create that experience where they feel like they are live and they are with you. That is really a preferred mode. And then some schools are creating what they call like a virtual information booth. So, like one school invited people to come to the school, and then they had this little booth that where people would check in for their tours, and then they had people on bicycles leading people around the campus in front of the cars. Um, Another school handed out maps, so they did have a personal kind of high touch experience as people arrived on campus, and then allowed families to go on their own self-guided tour. So that's a way to invite people to campus, but still keep your campus extremely safe. And so that's just another option. And then check out how Mount Airy used a dynamic format and this really simple Wix form that they created for tour signups. So this was kind of part of that virtual experience that they created, but gave them an opportunity to know what their signups were and to follow up with those families. And keep in mind that, like I said, virtual experiences are going to be here to stay. And when you think about most private schools, if they offer a boarding component, they're offering experiences for students that are out of state, far away in terms of distance, even if they're in the regional area, international students. So this is helping all private schools really think more dynamically about how to prepare out of state and out of country, and families that are farther away receive a more direct experience before they ever visit campus, or if they're never able to visit a campus before enrolling, to really get a close-up and personal experience. Last but not least, really think about community events. Think about creating community events that prospective families can enjoy, because many of the events and activities that you're offering on campus may be something that prospective families want to see. They may want to see a chess club meeting, or a cooking class being offered, or visit the school garden, or do science experiments, or go to a CrossFit class that you're offering. You're offering it already to your students on campus. Why not offer it to prospective families and really allow them to see up close the outstanding job you're doing with your clubs and activities? This would even include, if you have a college counseling or a counseling department on campus, put your college planning experts to pre-recorded, to recorded sessions, so that they can offer this not only live, but to prospective families. Maybe they're doing sessions on study habits or other things. Um, but that's a great way to share information. And then also in that college planning session, you could go over college matriculation data. And I find that oftentimes in private schools, everybody forgets to share with their current students all the great places where their alumni are currently going to college and university. So whether you do this live or you record it and you share it with prospects or your current students, I think you're going to get a lot of strong traction and views on those types of videos. Um, and then, another fun thing to do is to offer raffle prizes or swag from your school bookstore. You can do a lot of fun things to actually create a live community-based experience, even though it is virtual. And if you're not familiar, with, this process and you need some support, I'm more than happy to offer you a complimentary advisory session. Aperture Advisory Associates is really committed to offering you, enrollment and marketing services. We do a lot of work with private schools on their websites, SEO. I do a lot of work with Google Ads, SEM, copywriting, email news, social media, and publicity. So I'm more than happy to work with you on how to improve your existing virtual admission center on your website, or how to create one if you don't already have a robust center of sorts. And please do, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're under Education, Marketing Tips for Private Schools. We have a lot of useful tips that are related to enrollment management and marketing. And if you are working by a remote, final little tip here for the virtual world. Make sure your background looks inviting. I'm seeing a lot of people in their home settings, but make sure that your background is inviting, warm, has books, academic-oriented materials, or use a virtual background. That's perfectly fine. And then if you have students doing live sessions, they, or you're working with prospects, allow them to share their trophies, their dogs, something personal. Let them get to know you and your environment, either a virtual experience of a virtual background of your school or your home environment. But allow them to do the same. Allow them to share their personal environment as appropriate. But I would only do that if parents are present because of privacy laws. So that wraps it up pretty much. School admin too, I just want to mention because I gleaned a lot of information from their webinar. They do offer software, CRMs, enrollment management services and resources. So you might want to check out their website. So thank you so much for joining me today. If there are any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out at info@apertureadvisory.com, my email for questions, or give me a call for arranging a complimentary consultation. Thank you so much. Always remember, open your aperture. And as George Lucas always said, always remember your focus determines your reality. Make time to create a top-notch virtual experience for your prospective families. Thank you so much for joining me.